Welcome to the Final Girls podcast. I'm Anna Bogutska, your podcast host. And alongside our regular series exploring horror film history, sometimes I'm granted time to talk to some of the most exciting filmmakers working in the horror space today to talk about the films that they've got coming out. In today's bonus episode, I spoke again to writer-director Osgood Perkins, whose films I adore, and who I chatted to around the time of the release of Longlegs last year. It's not even been a year, and he's back in cinemas and on this podcast feed with another film. Based on a short story by Stephen King, The Monkey follows twin brothers who find a mysterious wind-up toy instigating a series of outrageous deaths that tear their family apart. 25 years later, the monkey begins a new killing spree, forcing these strange siblings to confront the cursed toy. There's no way to make that synopsis sound not goofy, because the monkey is goofy, and I had a great time with it. And in this chat with Perkins, where we talk about making comedy out of horror and his gateway into Stephen King through his dad. Don't worry, this conversation is completely spoiler-free. And with all of that said, please enjoy my chat with Osgood Perkins. Well, it seems like it's only been a few months, but you've got another film out.
It was like 10 minutes ago. And
it was. And there's another one coming too, isn't there?
I know. I'm actually in editing. There's an editing room behind me, and we're finishing that, and we don't know how to stop.
Well, I kind of wanted to ask you about this moment of extreme productivity.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm personally very pleased. It feels like a present every 6 months to receive another one of your films. But how are you balancing all of these different projects, the promotion of them, the post? I imagine you have other things cooking.
It's gotten to the point where people ask me, "Can we have lunch?" And I say, "I don't know. You need there's someone else who you can ask, but I don't know. I don't know what my schedule is. I don't know where I am. Someone else does. I have a guy who knows. I got a team of people who know, but I have no idea where I'm going next. Whatever's going to happen to me after I get off with you, I have no idea what it is. I'm talking to a meat grinder for all I know." It's been a very busy time, and that's a result of finding great partners, great creative energy. We've been on this train, this kind of nonstop rocket ship of making 3 movies. We shot 3 movies in 15 months. I don't know. And they're all pretty good. So it's like, I don't know. Should we stop now? I doubt it. And they're hitting, which is really crazy because like a lot of people can do a lot of shit,
Mm-hmm.
but if you do a lot of shit that's also weird, that also connects, that's the gold ring, as they say.
I mean, no, it's kind of extraordinary. So hopefully with the next one, it's going to be 3 through 3 in 18 months?
We'll see. They're all the cool news is that they're all totally different.
Excellent. And I know this is a thing that I had no idea what to expect going into The Monkey. Very few images, very few material was released. And I think that it's a natural expectation as an audience member to think that it's going to share DNA with the previous film that you have just seen from the first filmmaker. So do you think, is there any shared DNA between Longlegs and The Monkey?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in a lot of ways, Longlegs was sort of there's a comedic element, and there's a sort of a punk pop. Are we really taking this too seriously? We're not. Attitude about Longlegs that's very affectionately laid in, and it's kind of I feel like it's a decent primer for The Monkey, which is just straight, as far as I know, straight comedy. Like maybe it's bloody, maybe it's gory, maybe it's shocking, but it's not scary. It's not scary. It's not meant to be scary in that way. It's a meditation on the fact. It's an exploration. Let's never say meditation, Jesus. It's an exploration of this wild and woolly fact that everybody dies and you don't know when or how.
I mean, in many ways that can be really funny, and that's definitely the spirit in which I took the film. But I wonder, when you got this project, when you knew you were going to be adapting this particular short story, did you always envision this as a comedy with a lot of gore, a lot of gruesome elements, a lot of shocking elements, but as a comedy rather than a straight up horror?
Well, a couple of things happened when I was given the material. First of all, it's such a privilege, right? To not only be given the chance to sort of appear alongside the great author of all time. Then there, on top of it, there's the immediately recognizable image of the toy monkey, which has a knee-jerk, deep kind of like collective unconscious reaction from anybody. Like everybody looks at it and they feel something. There's something uncanny about it just right off the bat. So those two things are already like it's already a wealth of opportunity. Then the producers had a script that they didn't think was working very well, and it was very serious. It was a very sort of one of these very kind of like takes itself very seriously horror movies. And I was like, this is goofy. Like this is crazy. It's a toy monkey. It's not scary, like in that way. It's not it's not so deep as my 16-year-old daughter would say. It's it's far more playful than that. And then on top of it, I had my appreciation of Stephen King, and there's a playfulness to what he does that I've always really jibed with. Creepshow for me is like a seminal thing that really feels good to me. Misery really feels good to me as a comedy. Do you know what I mean? As something that's like highly pitched comedic. It's quite funny. Misery's quite funny. Like if you watch that movie and the way that it's photographed and the performances and kind of the takes and things that they do, it's really pretty. It's not silly, but it's lighter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went for that playfulness, which is just to me it just seems smarter. Do you know? Like when people are really serious about themselves, they're really kind of stupid. And when people are kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of all a joke, right? You're like, yep, you get it.
Well, what can you tell me a little bit more about your own relationship with Stephen King? I feel like everyone of a certain generation, or at least three generations, has what feels like a deeply personal relationship to the work of King. I know I do.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like my memories tend to be sort of like snapshots, right? There's like an indelible, like a moment of something that just like feels like a lot. And my dad was an avid reader. My dad was like very, I mean, he was born in the 30s and sort of raised in the theater and on movies, and television was kind of like just not something really that my dad as an actor was never on television, like didn't give a fuck about television. Like there really was like the movie people and the TV people, like in LA growing up. It's like, and they didn't mix. Now, of course, it's all just one big streaming vomit, you know what I mean? Like pile of just like stream of vomit. So it doesn't matter. But at the time, my dad was very kind of like, it was movies or books. And my dad was reading all the time. And I just remember standing with his copy of Pet Sematary and looking at the cover of that, the original cover with the cat's face and the misspelled kid's handwriting of the title. And there was something that just for me in that moment was like, oh, I understand all of this. Like I just this inflames my creativity. This inflames my spirit. And it's kind of beyond language, I suppose. And then the first book that I read of Stephen King's was Misery, which
Mm.
I read sort of at the same time as my dad was reading it. So he would kind of read a chapter, then I would read the same chapter, then he would read a chapter. And so it was a bonding thing, and kind of made me feel like sort of puffed up and like a big kid. Now all of a sudden I'm reading Stephen King. So there's a real affection for it more than horror. Do you know what I mean? It was sort of
Hmm.
turned me on more than it made me feel scared.
Hmm. I mean, my first King experience was Pet Cemetery, but I read that as a child,
Yeah,
and I thought it was going to be about cats,
that's a
and
tough one. That's a
it
tough
was
surprise.
kind of wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't.
A brutal book. That's a really hard book, especially
Yeah.
the poem. That's a really hard book.
Yeah, but it's a gateway. I think King's a gateway, and I think he has that way of making you feel really like you've been allowed into a special sacred adult space
Yeah.
before you even understand what genre is, before you understand what horror is. And I wonder kind of how did you, considering that personal relationship that you had with his work, how did you take upon the task of adapting him? And what was the process like? I'm always curious at this point in his career and where he is and how often his work has been adapted. Did you have to take notes from him? Did he have to take a look at your take on the monkey? What was that like?
I'm trying to remember what the initial kind of approval was because the producers obviously had sort of right to try it, right? And I think that King is he's a very elastic guy, and he's definitely a person of the people, right? Like he really cares about his public. He really cares about people in general. He's always got kind of a stance on this shouldn't be, or this should be, or these people are awful, or this sort of this government thing is. He's vocal about caring about people. So the opportunity was there, and I think he's just kind of waiting to be brought the thing, and then he'll sort of take a look at it, and if it resonates, it resonates, and if it's offensive to him, then it's a no. If it's dumb or craven or kind of in any way off-putting, I think he just says no thanks. But as it was always like, yeah, cool, cool, this is good. And I never spoke to him. Like we never had a conversation. Someone must have. He has a lawyer. He has one representative who's his lawyer who everything goes through. Terrific guy, Rand Holston, great guy. And I think we just sort of submitted things along the way. I wish my memory was better. And then ultimately he watched the movie and tweeted that insane thing saying that like he admired it, which is
Mm.
like, oh, well, okay, good. We're good here.
And can you tell me about the fun bits of making the monkey? Obviously once you settle into the tone, once you settle into the comedy and the absurdism of it, it is piling on deaths every other minute. Tell me about I'm imagining a sort of like death scene workshop that you had to do to come up with the most excruciating deaths for your characters.
They're all in the script.
Hmm.
So when they come to the production, when they get in front of the assistant director who now has to schedule things, when they get in front of the special effects guys and gals who have to build the stuff, when they get in front of the line producer who has to pay for it, like it's all on the page, it's all there. And we had death meetings, all the time, a couple times, at least two or three times, or maybe every day of every week of prep, just to sort of say like, okay, what is this? How are we doing this? What are the shots? Who needs to do what? We want to be over prepared. And the thing about it is that if you create a good environment, which is, it's not that hard to do on a film set. I know that a lot of film sets are toxic. And to me, that's just like, what? Like, why? How? How does that happen? Like, you're being given this opportunity to play all day? Like, what the fuck's the matter with you? So you create a nice environment and everybody wants their thing to be the best part of it. And so when we did the swimmer, the diver, when she dives
Hmm.
into the pool, we did a locked off look at the pool and then we did probably 10 layers of practical things. We built a bridge across the pool. I've got a special effects guy in a total Green Man suit. He goes out to the middle of the pool and he's throwing body parts at the camera. He's throwing buckets of blood at the camera. We got how many gallons of blood are there in a person? Oh, that's it? Shit, should we do 5 times that? Would that look right? And so you're just playing in a sandbox. And because the tone is so light, everybody feels good. But even if the tone isn't, we had a great time on Long Legs. Everybody was smiling all the time. How else do you do it? What's everybody's problem?
Who's got time to be toxic?
Why? It's so much energy. It's such an effort.
Do you have a particular favorite out of the ones? Either because it was particularly challenging or because you're proud of you devising this particular gruesome scene?
I think the swimmer is really good. I think the diver is really good. Some of them are weird because like the hornets at the end, like I couldn't see that. Like you can't see
Mm.
to see. You've got an actor who's pantomiming being attacked by hornets, but there's no hornets. So you're looking at the monitor, you're like, well, yeah, he. it looks good. Like he's doing the thing. I guess it's gonna be. We'll see in 6 months or whatever it is, and we've done on the thing. But those are good. The shotgun in the closet is really fun and ridiculous, and she's so great. I don't know. They're all good. I'm happy with all of it.
Yeah. I mean, your character's death is also particularly special, being trampled to death.
Pretty fun. Pretty
Yeah.
fun. We got that shot later. We didn't have that shot when in photography. We went back and we got that. We got horses and we got a sleeping bag out there and we got that together. We shot that afterwards.
And tell me a little bit about I mean, you've mentioned it as kind of inherently goofy, which it is, but also uncanny. What about the design of the monkey? And the way that you shot it, where at some point it feels like a giant toy monkey taking over the entire room.
Yeah. Um, Wanting to be classical with it and be like, it's the monkey. It looks like that. It's got the little vest and the pants and it has the smile and the eyes. And then you sort of have enough conversations and you do concept drawings and then you get other artists to do the thing that you've sort of expressed. It's written up in the script. All of the detail of the script of how the monkey looks is all written. There's a block of description of how he looks, very specific. Then you get into little fun little details, the way his toes grip the drum, the fact that the drum is gold and sparkly like a rock drum, just like little tweaks because why not? Because you're trying to make something that you like, right? Like I want to make
Mm.
something that I like. And sometimes you watch people's movies, you're like, you like this? You like you like that? You like how that looks? Okay, well, I don't know. But in any case, I'm responsible for my thing.
Mm.
So, and then yeah, and then we just had when we had time to, we just shot the shit out of the monkey. Like we just all kinds of lenses and proximities and movements and just a rodeo of just like getting stuff. And then
Mm.
you left with a big pile in the editing room to use the best things.
And I wanted to ask you as well, because if I remember correctly, in the King's short story, it's not twins, it's always father and sons, and it's several generations of fathers and sons, which is definitely a theme that is very much still in your film. But why did you want to make the lead character twins?
It was just one of those things that sort of evolved in the development of the thing and the project and actors, kind of wanting to entice an actor with an interesting thing, but also, so much of the movie is supposed to kind of feel like a Stephen King thing. And
Hmm.
for some reason, twins just felt like a horror trope, the Shining twins, I guess. Although I think in the novel they're not twins. I know that's a touchy subject,
Yeah.
the transition from movie to thing. But just maybe twins just sort of feels like a fun horror trope that sort of,
Hmm.
and what if you did it, but it wasn't like creepy twins, but it's just like a couple of guys who are twins. Um, and then they grow up to be this weird sort of couldn't be more different. I don't know, it just like everything in making a picture, it just evolves and you kind of let it and you stop evolutions when they get dumb and you encourage evolutions when they feel right.
What do you think a Stephen King film feels like? I know you know what I mean by that. It's like adaptations of his work. We know exactly what he feels like on the page. Well, what do you imagine a Stephen King film's like on the screen?
It's a great question because I know that I meant to do it. Like I know that my intention was like that's what we're going to do. But
Mm.
then you don't, but then when you get to the set or you're in the color correction process or you're doing the thing, you're not like, don't forget, it needs to be like a Stephen King movie. I think it's more like you set the intent as a super intention, right? And if you energetically set something as a super intention, like a big cloud, it'll kind of drizzle down, right? And like it'll just sort of happen. There's so much in the creative process, especially in making a movie, which is so involved and takes so long and is so slow and requires so many people's inspiration and intelligence and hard work, you kind of got to let it happen. And I say that in all these interviews, and maybe people hate to hear it, but it's like the more you bear down, the worse it's going to be. The harder you try and like step on it and squeeze the thing and like, we gotta get the thing. It's like squeezing a hose. It's like squeezing a garden hose, like putting a kink in a garden hose and be like, why isn't it flowing? Because you're fucking stepping on it, because you're like crushing it. But if you just open to it, I know it sounds goofy in California or yogic or whatever, but it's what it is. Like if you open it up and you flow with it, it'll take you there. I know it sounds so goofy, but it's just the truth, man. It's just the way it works.
I don't know, man. This is exactly the sort of completely irrelevant and too boring to go into in this interview, but exactly the right kind of workplace advice that I needed on this day. So I actually really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
loosen up, go easy. An athlete, no athlete goes into a game tight, right?
That's
They all go
true.
totally loose. That's what being an athlete is, just being rubber.
And that's like a very different variation of the very famous Bruce Lee quote, just be water. Just be
Hey,
rubber.
just be water, watery rubber.
But before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you, I know this is probably difficult to answer, but is there a particular King book, short story, novella, whatever, that you would really love to take your stab at?
I mean, like, I'm such a like. I mean, honestly, to me, something like it's so weird to say like remaking Creep Show would be really fun because to me that punchiness and that kind of like affectionate silliness almost like using horror as a kind of almost like a pranky kind of gag punchline kind of energy to me is really attractive. I really love that. It seems to me that all the ones I can kind of think of offhand have been done really pretty well and then redone pretty badly. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you got to be
Hmm.
careful. Like Carrie. Do you know what I mean? Like how unbelievably beautiful is the original Carrie?
Hmm.
Maybe we can just stop talking about Carrie at that point, right? So it's like that's good. Carrie's set. But maybe giving something as goofy as Creep Show some more love and kind of a little bit more style and beauty would be a fun thing to do.
Awesome. I really hope you get to make that one. Um,
Maybe
so thank you so much for your time again, and I'll probably talk to you again when your next film is
6
out.
months. About 6 months, yeah.
Amazing.